Captain Jack Horizon hated Tuesdays. Not for any philosophical reason, he just seemed to get all his worst assignments on Tuesdays. And as he stared at the flashing notification on his ship's console, he had a sinking feeling this particular Tuesday was about to take the cake. Computer, red message, Jack groaned, stretching his lanky frame in the pilot's chair of the lucky break, a ship that had, thus far, failed to live up to its name. Priority Alpha transmission. Captain Horizon. Your services have been requisitioned by the Vexillian Empire. Coordinates attached. Payment triple standard rate. Refusal not recommended. Jack's coffee mug paused halfway to his lips. The Vexillian Empire? Well, that's just perfect. In the grand scheme of the United Galactic Council's catalog of intelligent species, humans were relatively new players, only having achieved faster-than-light travel 60 years ago. They'd quickly earned the classification of Deathworlders species that evolved on planets so hostile that their very biology made them dangerous to most other sentient life. Earth, with its crushing gravity, toxic oxygen atmosphere, extreme temperature variations, and abundance of predators, had produced humans, beings who could survive radiation doses that would kill most aliens, heal from horrific injuries, and ingest substances that would melt the digestive systems of other species. Humanity's casual relationship with pain and their baffling willingness to consume toxins for pleasure made them objects of both fascination and terror throughout civilized space. But even Deathworlders like humans feared the Vexillians. Standing 3 meters tall with exoskeletons that could deflect small arms fire and primary claws that could slice through hull plating, Vexillians were apex predators who had somehow developed technology instead of eating it. Their empire spanned 17 systems, all acquired through methods that diplomatic records delicately referred to as aggressive negotiations. Jack scratched the stubble on his chin. Computer, how far do these coordinates? 6 hours at maximum sustainable speed, Captain. And what's our fuel situation? Sufficient for the journey with 23% reserve. Jack sighed, running a hand through his perpetually disheveled brown hair. 5 years ago, when he'd been Captain Jack Horizon of the Earth Space Force's 7th Fast Response Fleet, he would have told the Vexillians exactly where they could shove their requisition. But that was before the incident at Europa Station, or before the dishonorable discharge. Before he'd been reduced to piloting a third-hand courier ship, taking whatever jobs kept him in fuel and freeze-dried noodles. Triple standard rate, he muttered, eyeing the balance on his account display. The numbers were redder than a Martian sunset. Computer, set course for the coordinates, and pull up everything we've got on current Vexillian political affairs. Implying, would you like me to prepare your will while I'm at it? Jack glared at the console. Your humor module needs calibration. It's not in my programming to sugarcoat terminal stupidity, the computer replied cheerfully. As the lucky break changed course toward Vexillian space, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that his luck was about to break in an entirely different way. The Vexillian mothership loomed in the forward viewport like a jagged obsidian mountain. Unlike the elegant curves of council vessels or the utilitarian boxes of human ships, Vexillian craft resembled nothing so much as massive, crystalline insects, all angles and gleaming edges that somehow looked both organic and impossibly engineered. Lucky break requesting docking permission as per invitation coordinates, Jack transmitted, trying to keep his voice steady. The response came instantly, in the characteristic clicking undertone that translation software never quite filtered out of Vexillian speech. Permission granted. Proceed to Bay 12. Any deviation will result in immediate disintegration. Charming, Jack muttered. The docking bay swallowed his small ship like a predator consuming prey. As the external atmosphere normalized, Jack checked his sidearm, not that it would do much good against Vexillian armor, and stepped into the airlock. 3 Vexillian guards waited for him, their iridescent exoskeletons reflecting the harsh lighting in rainbow patterns. Each stood a full head taller than Jack's 6 feet, with 4 upper limbs, 2 ending in manipulator appendages, 2 in what humans had nicknamed can-openers' wickedly curved primary claws. Follow, the center guard commanded, the universal translator flattening the complex harmonics of Vexillian speech. Jack was escorted through corridors that seemed designed specifically to make non-Vexillians uncomfortable, too tall, too narrow, with atmospheric settings that left his eyes stinging and throat dry. Finally, they arrived at what appeared to be a diplomatic chamber, where an even larger Vexillian awaited. Ambassador Thrax, one guard announced, before all three backed from the room. Thrax was enormous even by Vexillian standards, with an exoskeleton so dark it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The ambassador's head crest, a sign of status among the species, extended nearly a foot above the already impressive cranial structure. Captain Horizon, Thrax began, mandibles clicking lightly. Your reputation precedes you. Does it now? Jack asked, wondering what exactly a Vexillian ambassador would know about a washed-up human pilot. Nothing flattering, surely. Indeed, the incident at Europa Station was instructive. Jack felt his face flush. I'm not here to discuss ancient history. Your message mentioned a job. Direct. Good. Thrax moved to a control panel, activating a holographic display. You will transport precious cargo from this vessel to these coordinates. A star map appeared, highlighting a system near the border of Vexillian space. What's the cargo? The door behind Jack slid open, and a slightly smaller Vexillian entered. Unlike Thrax's midnight coloration, this one's exoskeleton had a bluish iridescence, with intricate patterns etched into the armored plates. I am the cargo, said the newcomer, voice unmistakably female despite the translator's limitations. I am Luara, heir-designate to the Vexillian High Command. Jack blinked. You want me to transport the princess? I am not a princess, Luara corrected sharply. I am the selected successor to imperial authority. And you will deliver me to the Conclave of 17, where I will assume command. With all due respect, Jack said, knowing full well he was about to be disrespectful, why would the Vexillian Empire entrust its future ruler to a human courier? Surely you have warships, escorts. Which would attract attention, Thrax interjected. There are factions that would prefer Luara not reach the Conclave. Jack looked between the two Vexillians. So I'm disposable. You're unlikely, Luara corrected. No one would expect the heir-designate to travel with a single human in a ship that appears to be held together primarily by optimism and adhesive tape. Hey, the lucky break is more reliable than she looks, Jack protested. Our analysis suggests a 67% chance of successful transit, Thrax stated. Those are the best odds available given current political complexities. Jack crossed his arms. And if I refuse? Thrax's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Then the UGC receives evidence that the Europa incident was not, as you humans say, an unfortunate accident but rather a calculated act of sabotage that you were merely scapegoated for. Jack's blood ran cold. That's a lie. Perhaps. But would an inquiry board be certain? And how long would you spend incarcerated while they determined the truth? Jack glared at the ambassador, then at the heir-designate. Triple standard rate, payable in advance, plus hazard bonuses for each attack we survive. Acceptable, Luara said before Thrax could respond. We depart immediately. That's not how the environmental controls work, Jack said for what felt like the 100th time in 3 hours. If you keep adjusting the humidity settings, you'll short out the system. Luara's mandibles clicked in what Jack was beginning to recognize as irritation. The atmosphere is desiccating my exoskeleton. It's barbaric. It's standard humidity for most oxygen-breathing species, Jack countered, manually resetting the controls. The lucky break wasn't designed with giant insectoids in mind. I am not an insectoid. That term is both biologically inaccurate and culturally offensive. Jack suppressed a sigh. Fine. The ship wasn't designed with Vexillian physiology in mind. Better? Marginally. Luara shifted in the co-pilot seat, which groaned ominously under her weight. Your vessel's structural integrity is questionable. She'll hold together, Jack said, patting the console affectionately. We've been through worse. Such as? Nah. Well, there was that time on Proxima Centauri B when. The ship lurched violently, cutting off Jack's reminiscence as warning lights flashed across the console. "We're being targeted," he snapped, hands flying over the controls. 3 vessels, coming in fast. Military-grade weapons. But the configuration's all wrong for any official fleet. Luara hissed, a sound that made the hair on Jack's neck stand up. "Mercenaries. Friends of yours? If they were my allies, human, they would not be firing upon us," Luara replied icily. The lucky break shuddered as a glancing shot caught the aft shields. Jack cursed, throwing the ship into a spiraling dive at the pursuing vessel's sleek, predatory craft with the mismatched appearance of extensively modified fighters matched with unsettling precision. "They're good," Jack muttered. "Too good for random pirates." Another hit, this one dangerously close to the engine housing. The shield indicator dropped to 40%. "Can this vessel not move faster?" Luara demanded, gripping the edge of her seat with her secondary manipulators. "Not without tearing herself apart," Jack replied through gritted teeth. "But I've got other tricks." He punched a series of commands into the navigation system, plotting a course toward a nearby asteroid field. The pursuing ships followed, clearly confident in their superior maneuverability. "You're heading towards solid objects while being pursued," Luara observed. "Is this the famous human death wish I've heard so much about?" "It's called strategy," Jack retorted, sweat beading on his forehead as he threaded the needle between 2 massive chunks of space rock. "Something your people might want to try sometime instead of just smashing through problems." The lead pursuit vessel fired again, vaporizing a smaller asteroid directly ahead. Debris pattered against the Lucky Break's forward shields. 32% shield capacity, the computer announced helpfully. Jack's eyes narrowed. "Perfect." "How is our imminent destruction perfect?" Luara demanded. Instead of answering, Jack initiated a maneuver that the ship's safety protocols specifically warned against: a full reverse of the ion drives, while simultaneously engaging the emergency lateral thrusters. The Lucky Break skidded sideways like a stone across ice, spinning 180 degrees while maintaining its forward momentum. Now facing their pursuers but still traveling backward through the asteroid field, Jack had a clear firing solution on the lead ship. "Weapons systems online," the computer announced, sounding surprised at its own statement. "You have weapons?" Luara asked, equally surprised. "Courier ships get attacked sometimes," Jack said with a tight grin. "Computer, target lead vessel's propulsion system and fire." The Lucky Break's modest laser array officially registered as defensive countermeasures lanced out with surprising precision. The lead pursuit ship's engine flared brilliantly before cutting out, sending the craft tumbling into the path of its wingman. The resulting collision wasn't catastrophic, but it was enough to take both ships out of the pursuit. The third, however, managed to evade the drifting hulks and continued its approach, launching what the tactical display identified as boarding pods. "They're not trying to destroy us," Jack realized aloud. "They want to capture you." Luara's exoskeleton seemed to darken slightly, the Vexillian equivalent of paling. "As I suspected. This changes matters." "How exactly does it change?" Jack began, but was cut off as Luara rose from her seat, unfolding to her full height. "Continue evasive maneuvers," she commanded. "I will repel boarders." Before Jack could protest, she extracted what looked like a small cylinder from a compartment in her exoskeleton. With a flick of her primary manipulator, it extended into a staff of some crystalline material that hummed ominously. "That's not going to do much against vacuum if they breach the hull," Jack pointed out. Luara's mandibles arranged themselves in what might have been a smile. "Then I suggest you ensure they do not breach the hull, human." With that, she ducked through the cockpit door, heading toward the cargo bay where the boarding pods would most likely attach. Jack swore under his breath and returned his attention to piloting. "Computer, reroute all non-essential power to engines and forward shields. Let's see if we can shake this last one." Implying. "Also, there's an incoming transmission from the pursuit vessel. put it through. A gravelly voice crackled over the comms. Courier vessel. Surrender the Vexillian, and you will be permitted to live. That's a generous offer, Jack replied, banking the ship hard around a particularly large asteroid. But I've got a counter-proposal. He cut the transmission and instead opened the internal comms to the cargo bay. Luara, we've got about 2 minutes before that boarding pod makes contact. You ready down there? The response came amid sounds of movement. A Vexillian heir-designate is always prepared for combat. Great, Jack muttered. Computer, how's our friend doing back there? Pursuit vessel maintaining distance. Boarding pod will intercept in 97 seconds. Jack's mind raced through options. The lucky break couldn't outrun the pod, not with the damage they'd already taken. Fighting off boarders inside the confined spaces of the ship was risky at best, catastrophic at worst. Then his eyes fell on the asteroid field tactical display, and a very human, very Deathworlder idea formed. Computer, plot course to bring us within 50 meters of asteroid designation Delta 9, then execute a hard burn perpendicular to current trajectory on my mark. Warning, such a maneuver will place extreme stress on the already compromised structural integrity. Noted. Luara, brace for extreme maneuvers. Jack watched the tactical display as the boarding pod closed in, timing its approach. Just as it committed to its final intercept vector, he barked mark. The lucky break lurched sickeningly as the engines fired at maximum output, pushing the ship in a 90-degree change of direction. Jack's vision grayed at the edges as the G-forces strained against the compensators. Behind them, the boarding pod, unable to match the maneuver, shot past their previous position directly into the path of the asteroid Jack had selected. The collision was brief and spectacular. Boarding pod destroyed, the computer confirmed, pursuit vessel retreating. Jack allowed himself a small, satisfied smile as he eased the ship back onto a stable course. Let's get out of this rock field before they come back with friends. When Luara returned to the cockpit, her crystalline weapon still extended, she regarded Jack with what might have been newfound respect. Your solution was unconventional, she said. That's us humans for you. We specialize in unconventional. Luara settled back into the co-pilot seat. Perhaps that is why Ambassador Thrax selected you specifically. Jack raised an eyebrow. What do you mean, selected me specifically? But Luara had already turned her attention to the navigation display, mandibles clicking in what Jack was beginning to suspect was the Vexillian version of a knowing smile. We need supplies and repairs, Jack announced as the lucky break limped through space, trailing a thin vapor from one of the damaged coolant lines. The stabilizers won't last another firefight. Luara, who had spent the past several hours in silent contemplation, shifted her attention to the navigation display. There are no Vexillian allied stations in this sector. No, but there's Waypoint Station. It's neutral territory, primarily a trading hub. Jack brought up the station schematics. I know someone there who can help us get repairs without asking questions. Someone you trust? Jack hesitated. Trust is a strong word. Let's say someone who owes me a favor. Luara's mandibles clicked softly. In my experience, debts are often repaid in unexpected currency.
That's surprisingly poetic for a species known primarily for dismembering their enemies, Jack remarked.
There is much your kind does not understand about mine, Luara replied, her tone unreadable through the translator. But perhaps that is changing. Waypoint Station appeared in the distance, a sprawling construct of interconnected modules that had grown organically over decades as different species added their own architectural contributions. The result was a chaotic but functional hub where a dozen different atmospheric environments existed side by side, connected by elaborate airlock systems. Jack transmitted their docking codes falsified, of course, and guided the lucky break into one of the smaller bays in the human-compatible section. You'll need to stay on the ship, he told Luara as he prepared to disembark. A Vexillian on Waypoint would attract way too much attention. Unacceptable, Luara countered immediately. I will not remain vulnerable while you conduct unknown business. Jack sighed. Look, no offense, but you're 3 meters tall with an exoskeleton that screams I'm going to eat your children. You're not exactly inconspicuous. Luara's head tilted in what Jack had learned was consideration. After a moment, she reached for a compartment in her thoracic plating and extracted what looked like a small disc. With a deft movement of her manipulators, she placed it against her neck joint. Immediately, the air around her shimmered, and to Jack's astonishment, her form seemed to contract and shift until what stood before him appeared to be a bulky, but recognizably Tyrolean trader, a species common enough on Waypoint to avoid notice. Holographic distortion field, Luara explained, her voice now coming from the approximate location of the Tyrolean speech orifice. Standard equipment for Vexillian operatives in non-aligned territory. Jack blinked. Right, of course it is. Just try not to talk much. Your speech patterns are still pretty distinctive. They made their way through the docking area and into the station proper. Waypoint was a riot of sensory input, the mingled sense of a dozen different cuisines designed for various physiologies, the cacophony of trading calls in multiple languages, the press of beings from across the galaxy engaged in the universal constant of commerce. Jack led them through the crowds toward a less trafficked section, eventually stopping outside a workshop with a sign in 7 languages that roughly translated to Dina's repairs. No questions asked. Wait here, he instructed Luara, and don't make eye contact with anyone. Inside, the workshop was cluttered with parts from countless different ships and systems. A wiry human woman with intricate cybernetic enhancements covering the left side of her face looked up from a disassembled drive core. Well, look what the void dragged in, she drawled, wiping her hands on an already grease-stained coverall. Jack Horizon. I figured you'd be dead by now. Good to see you too, Dina, Jack replied with a half-smile. How's business? Can't complain. Her enhanced eye whirred slightly as it focused. But you didn't come for small talk. What do you need? Stabilizer repairs, coolant line replacement, and a sensor sweep for tracking devices. Quick and quiet. Dina whistled. Someone's on your tail? Let's just say I'm delivering a package that some people would rather intercept. Must be some package. Her gaze drifted past Jack to where Luara waited outside. New partner? New partner?
Temporary arrangement.
Dina's expression softened slightly. Look, Jack, after what happened at Europa, I'm glad you're finding work. Even the dangerous kind. Jack tensed. Dina, we agreed never to. I know. She raised her hands placatingly. Just saying I'm glad you're still flying. Give me an hour for the repairs. And it'll cost you. Always does, Jack muttered, transferring a portion of his advance payment to her account. While Dina's crew worked on the lucky break, Jack and Luara retreated to a quiet corner of a nearby cantina that catered to oxygen breathers. Jack nursed a synthetic whiskey while Luara sat awkwardly, her holographically disguised form too large for the human-sized furniture. The conclave begins in 26 standard hours, Luara said quietly. We must not delay. Dina's the best mechanic in 3 sectors. She'll have a space worthy in no time. Luara leaned forward slightly. You were involved in an incident at a place called Europa. Jack's expression hardened. That's not relevant to our current situation. I disagree. Ambassador Thrax selected you specifically because of it. What are you talking about?
Luara's holographic Tyrolean features arranged themselves in what approximated contemplation. The Conclave of 17 is not merely a ceremonial gathering. I am to be named the first empress of the Vexillian domains in 7 generations. It represents a significant shift in our governance structure from military council to centralized authority. Jack's eyebrows rose. That's ambitious. It is necessary. The fragmenting of our command structure has led to inefficiencies and vulnerabilities. But not all military leaders support this transition. So you're saying there's a coup brewing? Precisely. And Ambassador Thrax believes you understand something about such situations. Jack stared into his drink. Europa Station was different. I was framed. I tried to stop the sabotage, not cause it. Yet you were held responsible and cast out by your own kind, Lu'era observed, despite having acted correctly according to your own moral framework. Before Jack could respond, his communicator pinged with a message from Dina, repairs complete. Return immediately. Let's go, he said, grateful for the interruption. But as they approached the repair bay, Jack noticed something odd. The security shutters were closed, and Dina's crew was nowhere to be seen. Instinctively, he reached for his sidearm. Something's wrong, he murmured to Lu'era. Stay alert. They entered the workshop cautiously. The lights were dimmed, and the usual sounds of repair work were absent. Jack's hand tightened on his weapon. Dina? He called out. A figure stepped from the shadows, Dina, her cybernetic eye glowing faintly in the low light. Sorry about this, Jack. Jack. Before he could react, panels slid open in the walls, revealing a half-dozen armed individuals of various species, all with weapons trained on Jack and Lu'era. The bounty on a Vexillian heir-designate, Dina continued, not meeting his eyes, is enough to buy my own station. Maybe even my own moon? Jack kept his voice level. How did you know? Holographic disguise is good, but my cyberware sees right through it. Plus, the way you were acting, I knew this wasn't just another courier job. Lu'era's holographic disguise flickered and failed as she straightened to her full height, towering over everyone in the room. Several of the bounty hunters took involuntary steps backward. You have made a grave miscalculation, Lu'era stated coldly. Dina shrugged, though Jack could see tension in her posture. No hard feelings, Jack. Business is business. Yeah, Jack said, his mind racing through options. I understand completely. With a sudden movement, he drew and fired in one fluid motion, not at Dina or the bounty hunters, but at the overhead environmental control panel. The station's atmospheric regulation system sparked and exploded, plunging the workshop into darkness as emergency protocols engaged. In the chaos, Jack grabbed Lu'era's arm, or what he hoped was her arm, and pulled her toward the emergency exit he'd noted earlier. Weapons fire erupted behind them, shots going wild in the darkness. This way, he shouted, guiding her through the maintenance corridor that would lead back to the docking bay. Alarms blared throughout the station as they ran, Lu'era's heavy footfalls echoing metallically against the deck plating. Behind them, shouts and more weapons fire indicated pursuit. Your ship had better be functional, Lu'era said as they rounded a corner. Dina may be a traitor, but she's still the best mechanic around, Jack replied grimly. She'd have done the repairs properly before springing the trap. They reached the docking bay to find two bounty hunters already there, trying to breach the Lucky Break security systems. Jack dispatched one with a precisely aimed shot. Lu'era dealt with the other using a sweeping blow from one of her primary claws that sent the unfortunate being crashing into a bulkhead. Get aboard, Jack commanded, overriding the airlock. I'll keep them busy. Lu'era paused, mandibles clicking rapidly. You would sacrifice yourself? I'm not planning on dying today, Jack retorted, firing down the corridor at approaching figures. But someone needs to prep the ship for immediate departure, and I'm guessing you don't know human control systems. To his surprise, Lu'era inclined her head in what appeared to be respect before ducking into the airlock. Jack continued providing covering fire until the crushing pressure of a station security lockdown alarm began blaring. Attention all vessels, came the automated announcement. Station security lockdown in effect. All docking clamps engaged. Unauthorized departure will result in weapons deployment. Jack swore creatively as he backed into the Lucky Break, sealing the airlock behind him. Change of plans, he called as he raced to the cockpit where Lu'era was already examining the controls. We're going to have to break out. The station has engaged security measures, Lu'era confirmed. However, I have identified a potential solution. Jack raised an eyebrow as he dropped into the pilot's seat. I'm all ears. Shh. Lu'era pointed to a specific control configuration. This vessel has an emergency docking clamp override. Military grade, not standard for civilian craft. Jack's expression darkened momentarily. A souvenir from my previous career. But even if we break the clamps, the station's defense grid will lock onto us the moment we move. Then we must ensure they cannot target us effectively. Lu'era's mandibles clicked in what Jack was beginning to recognize as determination. Prepare for departure. I will provide a distraction. What exactly do you mean by distraction? Jack asked, hands flying over the controls as he prepared the lucky break for an emergency launch. Lu-Ara accessed the ship's communication array. Ambassador Thrax anticipated complications. There are contingencies in place. Before Jack could question further, she transmitted a series of clicks and hisses that the ship's translator didn't even attempt to interpret. Almost immediately, the station's security alert shifted from standard containment protocols to a higher-level emergency. Attention all personnel, the automated system announced. Unknown breach detected in environmental controls. Anomalous life signs detected in maintenance ducts. All security teams converge on Section Delta 4. Jack shot Lu-Ara a questioning look. What did you do? I activated a Vexillian scout drone that was placed on the station 18 standard months ago as a precautionary measure, Lu-Ara explained with what sounded suspiciously like smugness. It is currently mimicking the biosignature of a juvenile arachnoid swarm. You people are terrifyingly thorough, Jack muttered, impressed despite himself. Arachnoids are Class 1 biological hazards. Indeed, the station's security will prioritize containment over pursuit. Jack grinned and engaged the emergency clamp override. The lucky brake shuddered as the magnetic locks disengaged, then shot from the docking bay like a cork from a bottle. Behind them, Waypoint Station was in visible disarray, with security vessels scrambling to form containment patterns around the supposed arachnoid outbreak. We've got a clear shot to the jump point, Jack announced, pushing the engines harder than was strictly advisable. If we can make it to hyperspace before they realize we're gone. The ship lurched violently as a targeted energy pulse struck their port side. They've realized we're gone, Lu-Ara observed dryly. The tactical display showed 3 pursuit vessels rapidly gaining on them, sleek, predatory craft that Jack recognized with a sinking feeling. Those are Vexillian scout ships, he said, glancing at Lu-Ara. Your people? Lu-Ara's exoskeleton darkened visibly. Not my allies. General Kraz commands the Third Fleet. He opposes the imperial transition. Great, so we're being chased by the Vexillian equivalent of elite special forces. Jack executed a series of evasive maneuvers as energy weapons lanced past them. Any more contingency plans up your exoskeleton? We must reach the Conclave, Lu-Ara stated firmly. The assembled leaders must see for themselves the lengths to which Kraz will go to prevent the imperial succession. Another hit rocked the ship, this one dangerously close to the newly repaired stabilizers. Shield integrity at 42%. The computer reported. Hull breach imminent if current damage pattern continues. Jack's mind raced. The lucky break couldn't outrun Vexillian military scouts, and they couldn't outgun them either. But maybe. How important is it that we have proof of Kraz involvement? He asked suddenly. Lu-Ara's mandibles clicked rapidly. It would eliminate potential political opposition to my ascension. Perfect. Jack grinned and opened a channel. Tension Vexillian pursuit vessels. This is Captain Jack Horizon of the independent courier Lucky Break. I request to speak with General Kraz immediately. Lu-Ara stiffened. What are you doing? Jack held up a hand for silence as the comms crackled to life. This is General Kraz, came a deep, clicking voice. Surrender the heir-designate immediately or be destroyed. See, that's not a great negotiating position, Jack replied conversationally. Especially since I'm recording this entire exchange on an encrypted frequency that's being transmitted directly to the Conclave of 17. There was a momentary silence before Kraz responded, his voice now edged with what the translator rendered as uncertainty. You lie. No human vessel has the capability to penetrate Vexillian secure communications. You'd be surprised what humans can jury-rig with spare parts in desperation, Jack bluffed. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to back off and let us proceed to the Conclave. Or every member of the 17 is going to hear you explicitly ordering the assassination of the legitimate heir-designate. The following silence stretched longer this time. Lu-Ara leaned close to Jack. The transmission capability you claim is impossible, she whispered. I know that and you know that, Jack whispered back. But does he know that? The answer came in the form of intensified weapons fire. The lucky break shuddered under the assault, shields failing in cascading sections. Critical system failure imminent, the computer announced with what Jack thought was unnecessary calm. Primary propulsion offline in 3, 2, 1. The ship lurched and went dark for a moment before emergency power engaged, casting the cockpit in an eerie red glow. Well, Jack said, looking at the tactical display where the 3 Vexillian vessels were moving into position to board them. That answers that question. Lu'ara rose to her full height. I will not be taken. No, Jack agreed, unbuckling from his seat. You won't be. Because we're going to plan B. You have a plan B? Jack moved quickly to a hidden panel beneath the navigation console. I always have a plan B. It's usually terrible, but it exists. He extracted what appeared to be a small, unmarked case and flipped it open to reveal a device that Lu'ara didn't recognize. What is that? She asked. Something I salvaged from Europa Station, Jack explained, activating the device. The reason I was really discharged. It's a prototype quantum entanglement communicator, short range, unstable, and officially doesn't exist. And it will help us? How? Jack's fingers danced over the device's interface. Because while I can't actually transmit to the Conclave, I can make it look like I am to anyone scanning our communications. The device hummed to life, generating what appeared to be an enormous amount of encrypted data traffic. On the tactical display, the Vexillian vessels hesitated. They're scanning us, Jack explained, manipulating the device further. Right now, it looks like we're broadcasting everything, including Krastak's threats, across multiple secure channels. And the beauty is, they can't tell if it's real or not without breaking off pursuit. Lu'ara's compound eyes gleamed with newfound respect. Impressive deception for a species without exoskeletal chromatophores. We make do, Jack replied with a tight grin. Now we just need to. The ship rocked again as another energy blast struck them, more powerful than the previous volleys. They've made their decision, Lu'ara observed grimly. Jack checked the readouts and swore. They're using a focused ion cannon. They're not trying to disable us anymore, they're trying to erase any evidence. The lucky break shuddered under another hit, and warning lights cascaded across every console. Life support compromised, the computer announced. Hull breach in cargo section. Emergency bulkheads engaged. Jack's mind raced. They were out of options except for one very bad one. How good is your exoskeleton at handling pressure differentials? He asked, already moving to a locker near the rear of the cockpit. Lu'ara understood immediately. You intend to abandon ship. I prefer to think of it as a tactical relocation, Jack said, pulling out 2 emergency vacuum suits. He tossed one to Lu'ara. These are designed for short-term survival. The jump point is less than 1 light minute away. You expect us to reach the jump point without a ship. Lu'ara sounded genuinely puzzled.
Jack pulled out a smaller case from beneath the pilot's seat and snapped it open to reveal 2 compact propulsion units. These are emergency thruster packs. Not exactly comfortable, but they'll get us there.
What about the Vexillian vessels? They will detect us immediately. Jack's smile was grim as he strapped on the thruster pack. Not if they're busy dealing with a catastrophic antimatter containment failure. Lu'ara's exoskeleton paled. You're going to destroy your ship. It's either that or let Krastak destroy it with us inside, Jack replied, his voice tight with emotion. Besides, the lucky break has always been more than just a ship to me. She deserves to go out fighting. As they suited up, Jack activated the ship's final protocol, a cascading failure of the antimatter containment system that would result in an explosion large enough to disable or destroy their pursuers. 10 minutes until containment failure, the computer announced. Please evacuate immediately. They made their way to the emergency airlock. Jack paused for a moment, hand resting on the ship's bulkhead. Goodbye, old girl, he whispered. You deserve better. Then he cycled the airlock, and they were thrust into the cold vacuum of space. Propulsion units carrying them away from the doomed lucky break as the Vexillian vessels closed in for the kill. Behind them, the ship that had been Jack's home for years erupted in a brilliant flash of energy, momentarily outshining the nearby stars. The shockwave caught the closest Vexillian vessel, sending it spinning out of control. The other 2 broke off pursuit, clearly damaged but still functional. They will regroup and search for survivors, Luera warned as they accelerated toward the jump point, now visible as a subtle distortion in the star field ahead. Then we'd better not be here when they do, Jack replied, pushing his thruster pack to maximum output. The jump point grew larger in their visors, the quantum instability creating a shimmering gateway in space. Just as they approached, Jack's sensors picked up the Vexillian vessels regaining formation and accelerating toward them. Hold on to me, Jack shouted, reaching for Luera. Their gloved hands locked together as they plunged into the swirling energies of the jump point, the universe twisting around them in ways human minds were never meant to comprehend. They emerged in a system Jack had never seen before, a binary star surrounded by 7 planets, the third of which glowed with the unmistakable signature of a heavily industrialized world. Orbiting this planet was a massive space station, unlike any human construction, a spiraling structure that resembled a vast crystalline nautilus shell.
The conclave, Luara breathed, her voice filled with reverence even through the suit's communicator. Their momentum carried them toward the station, but they were still hours away at their current velocity. Jack checked their suit readouts. Oxygen levels were already dropping faster than he'd like.
We need to signal them, he said. Any ideas? Luara extended one limb, the suit material stretching to accommodate her alien physiology. A small device emerged from a compartment in her exoskeleton. Royal beacon. Short range, but unmistakable. She activated it, and immediately the device began pulsing with a light that shifted through colors Jack couldn't even name. Within minutes, a sleek vessel detached from the Conclave Station and accelerated toward them. The Royal Guard, Luera explained. They will recognize my biosignature. The vessel that intercepted them was elegant and deadly, clearly designed for both ceremonial display and combat efficiency. It extended a docking tube that enveloped them both, drawing them into a decontamination chamber. Once aboard, they were met by a contingent of Vexillians, whose exoskeletons bore intricate patterns that Jack assumed denoted rank or function. They clicked and hissed at Luara in their native language, their mandibles moving rapidly. They are surprised to find me alive, Luera translated for Jack's benefit. Word had reached the Conclave that Ambassador Thrax's mission had failed and the heir-designate had been lost. Krastak's doing, I assume, Jack said, removing his helmet now that the chamber had pressurized. One of the guard approached Jack, towering over him by at least 2 feet. Its exoskeleton shifted to a pattern of blues and golds that the translator rendered as formal respect.
Human Jack Horizon, it addressed him directly. You have safeguarded the heir-designate through great peril. The conclave acknowledges this debt.
Jack nodded awkwardly, uncertain of the proper protocol. Just doing my job. Which, now that I think about it, I never actually got paid for. Luara made a sound that the translator didn't catch, but that Jack suspected was the Vexillian equivalent of a snort. Payment will be arranged, the guard assured him. But first, we must proceed to the conclave. General Krastak's representatives are already presenting their case for succession. The journey to the central chamber of the conclave was brief, but gave Jack time to marvel at the alien architecture. The entire structure seemed to be grown rather than built, with corridors that spiraled organically and chambers that expanded and contracted as needed. The Conclave Station is a living organism, Luera explained, noting his fascination. It has been cultivated over 17 generations, one for each member of the ruling council. They arrived at an enormous chamber where 17 massive thrones arranged in a circle dominated the space. 16 were occupied by Vexillians whose exoskeletons displayed patterns of such complexity that Jack's eyes had trouble focusing on them. The 17th throne, slightly larger than the others, sat empty. In the center of the circle stood a Vexillian whose military bearing was unmistakable even to human eyes. Next to him was an elaborate display showing the wreckage of what Jack recognized as Ambassador Thrax's vessel. And so, with the regrettable loss of both Ambassador Thrax and the heir-designate, the military figure was saying, tradition demands that succession pass to the next viable bloodline, which I humbly. Your humility is as false as your evidence, General Krastak, Luara's voice rang out as she stepped into the chamber, Jack at her side. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The assembled Vexillians' exoskeletons flashed through a rapid sequence of colors, and a sound like thousands of rattling dice filled the chamber as their mandibles clicked in surprise. Kreistak turned, his own exoskeleton darkening to a deep crimson that required no translation to understand. Impossible, he hissed. You were eliminated. Evidently not, Lu'era replied, stepping forward. And in the presence of the 17, I formally accuse you of attempted regicide and treason against the imperial succession. Jack watched as the political drama unfolded, aware that he was witnessing a pivotal moment in Vexillian history. Whatever happened next would shape the relationship between humanity and this powerful alien species for generations to come. And somehow, against all odds, he had ended up right in the middle of it,